our own folks. We came up with 10 key attributes of the cloud that really you need to kind of take in and understand to be able to take the power. The first one is it has to be standards-based. If all we do is move out and configure everything out on the cloud, you know what? You're never going to get to a true cloud environment. You've got to be standards-based. Most organizations I talk to couldn't move to a standards base. They don't have the processes, nor do they have the culture. Because let's face it, the culture that a lot of shops have today is in the developers is, I can build it. I can build it better. We've got to go from building to assembling. Think of the automobile industry in the 1950s. They built all pieces of the car. They built the radio. They built the fenders. Now, they don't build anything. What they do is they design and they assemble. And I think we're going to have to move to that design assembly. And if we do that, the cloud will be even more powerful for our ability to come up. The whole thing on virtualization, this atomic versus molecular. And what do we mean by that? Think of atomic as I've got a virtual image of an operating system. Well, that's good. That's an atom. What you really want to do is you want to have a virtualization of the application, which includes the whole stack underneath it, the operating system, the middleware, and the application. And when I can get to that level of virtualization, I now have true ability to move around and get to that elasticity that we're looking for out on the cloud. And it's got to be versatile, and it's got to be based on workloads. And there's not all workloads are going to be out on the cloud. There are some workloads that actually are not conducive to the cloud, especially if I'm having to move around, a lot of data. And so you got to follow the applications. You also got to make sure you've got versatile deployments, because you're going to deploy some in an Intel world, some maybe on a Unix world. You've got to make sure that you've got that flexibility, because you can tie yourself into an implementation, and you wake up one day, and you got the same problem you had before cloud. I'm locked into a particular, structured way of doing things, and I can't take advantage of all the other things happening in the industry. We know about elasticity. The other one is density. Density is an interesting one, because as I move to multi-tenancy, I can get much, much more density. But sometimes density isn't the answer, because I do want to have people that are, kind of off to the side. I do want to have that level of isolation. In fact, security and isolation, what we call get off my cloud. Not all implementations need to be on the same cloud. You can have a cloud for a particular client, a particular business process, a particular instance or supplier in your organization. The other thing, you've got to be resilient. And resiliency is not replication. Now, the next thing we talk, in fact, Bill mentioned it, and that's the evolution of standards. If we don't have standards, we're going to lead the clients like yourselves down the garden path yet again, where there will be competing standards, this vendor, that vendor, this vendor, that vendor, this standard, that standard. So what we've done, we've been working with the Standards Customer Council, and it's the OMG group, and it's just been formed. And it's about 4 weeks old. There are already over 100 companies that have signed up, from vendors to end users, to try and get control of all the standards that are out there. The other thing is, there are different entry points, and every client is at a different space. There is no one standard. But I'll tell you, if you really kind of think about it, there's 4 key areas you can start. One, just analyze your environment. Try to decide what applications, what processes are really able to take advantage of the cloud, and where should they run? 90% of the hype may be on public cloud. In all my interactions with clients, 90% of the work is on private cloud. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Public versus private really doesn't matter. It's how do I take advantage, how do I virtualize, how do I move to this elastic environment, and then how do I get to really these optimized systems that provide the right level of service, to the end user that you're responsible for, or to your clients, to your suppliers, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. There are clients that are realizing it in different ways today. So there's a lot of people out there utilizing and getting value from the cloud in different forms. There is no single way. Remember, cloud is such a broad definition, as Bill showed us. It depends on who you talk to. Now, from an IBM perspective, you know what? We've got work going on in all of them. All the way from the infrastructure service, things like automation management, security, image management. But one thing we never got credit, Bill, and we'll have to work on your charts, we do provide things as business process as a service. In fact, we've got business now that generates over $1 billion that I would consider to be software as a service or business process as a service. Okay? And we're moving more and more to that way because what we're hearing from clients is very, very simple. I want flexibility. I want to be able to decide what's best for my business, and I don't want it to be a technology decision. I really, really want it to be a business decision. So the cloud is here to stay. Like Bill said, it's very, very early, but now's the time to get on that journey. And every client will get on that journey very different. But remember, as you reinvent IT, focus in on reinventing your business. Because a driver with a great car is not as good as a great car or technology and a great driver, which really has to be the business and the processes that drive it. Thank you.
Well,